Next up, we have Future Fashion with Katzai featuring Kit from Kit Wool and Dale Warner from Lifeline Clothing Malaysia, LLCM, discussing on topic of technology in fashion.
Hi, this is Katzai again on Future Fashion. And on today's episode, we have Kit Woo and Dale Warren with us.
Hi.
And the topic for today is economy, which is not my thing, really.
Same.
I am a fashion person through and through. Eat, sleep, fashion. You know, I'm not. But I think maybe we can touch a bit on the production of stuff. You know, during the pandemic and how it affected you. You know.
It definitely did affect it. I think it affected everyone in the industry.
Yeah.
So I would say it's kind of like a chain reaction. So if one place had like a problem, everyone else at the back will have kind of like an issue, delays or like cancellation. So that's what happened to me. So during the pandemic, when the lockdown happened in March of 2020,
yes,
I basically kind of cancel orders from my Chinese buyers because so there were issues production, there were issues with just like suppliers being not able to open the stores to like sell stuff. So there's this thing of like imports with China where they're like quite strict with things going into the country. So I would completely avoid producing in Malaysia and send it into China. So there's just a lot of issues. So usually I would just get things produced in China and sell in China. Yeah, and sell in China. So when the pandemic happened, so it was kind of like, oh, I guess we just have to kind of like put a halt to the Chinese market and then just kind of like bring the business back home and kind of source and produce from here
locally
and sell online. So I think everyone kind of just like went online, and there were just like a few tweaks here and there with the collection where I can't sell things that were just too outrageous because I think the market here is just not especially online because they would just prefer to come in and fit to just make sure that they look good.
Also, I think online they are very price conscious.
So like
so
I think it's just like we had to like adjust the pieces and what can we sell online, and of course the selling price and just like the efficiency of like shipping and stock checks. So I think during the pandemic it kind of like made us like be
rethink
realize, and just like a little bit more tech savvy and just like basically just migrate the physical business side into like online. So that was kind of like that's what the pandemic taught us. I guess that's just like positive thing to
but it's not bad, isn't it?
So like it's okay, like it depends on like what you sell. So like there was like that hype with masks.
Yes, everybody was doing masks.
So everyone was like producing masks, like just like fabric masks. So like I obviously hop on that shit. So there was like some like good positive like reaction.
But was it selling well?
It was selling really well. So I didn't think it was like that big of a like impact because I was just like playing with my own fabric mask because everyone was like not trying to spend so much on like making buying like the disposable mask. There was like the issue with like sustainability where we're like just like throwing masks every year. So like I thought I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna sew a few fabric masks for my family. So then someone saw it online and they're like, oh, why not just like make it and then just like produce it. So I was like, oh, okay.
But I thought fabric masks do not filter it well.
Right, that was like last year. So when there were like no regulations of like you can only wear like surgical masks and go out. So that was that time when we were okay to wear fabric masks because that mask was just
before
like,
the Delta arrives on the scene.
So now we have to like double mask, so like that changes like the kind of like so it was like an interesting thing to kind of like to learn, like just like online business and stuff.
And also I thought you have to source locally for the raw material as well as production locally also.
Locally,
How good or how bad was it? Was it good?
It was kind of like not sure, and we would just kind of like do whatever we can. But I'm like considered lucky because my studio is my home, so I basically work from home since I started the brand. But when I wanted to like outsource and get stuff done, there was like basically zero people who was like doing, because we were like in complete lockdown.
Yeah.
So we were just doing it from home. Like, I was just like loaning out like home machines to like my staff and just like have them do whatever they can with whatever they have. So like, I don't know, just like time passed. Oh, there was that Moda's initiative with PPE production.
Yes.
So we were volunteered to like produce like PPE for like the hospital. So like the president of the Moda would just send the sponsor. It was like kind of like a donated money or like materials, have them cut, send to our respective like homes and like studios, and we just like produce like there were like thousands upon thousands of PPEs that were produced. So that was like, you know, something to do during the lockdown. So yeah.
Not too much design in that.
No, we just kind of like go into like production mode and just like sewing.
Okay.
And as in the collecting
we collect recycled textiles. So what happens with the pandemic is there's a great opportunity for people to declutter their homes. So the amount of material that we had to collect increased because of people had their free time. So, but which we did collect, but the problem was that it then created a problem with us because we had too much material to be able to process. So the supply chains that we deal with were not connected, and it was all broken down. Especially in this last MCO, the previous one wasn't so bad because everything stopped. But this one just recently, some things were still running, so it was more disjointed. So, so people have decluttered a lot. So there'll probably be a surge in demand because there's a lot of spare room in their closets. So because that's what they've been doing. But. So the pandemic did cause that, you know, bit of a wave. So which has never happened before. So generally, with recycling, it goes when there's a public holiday or some sort of festive period. That's usually when people will declutter their home. But with the pandemic, it's gone on for a lot longer. So there will be a change probably in people's spending and how they buy things. They may be a bit more aware.
I don't think so, dear. I don't think there will be a change in the spending habit. I think they just can't wait to spend now.
Yeah, they can't wait, but they may be a bit more aware of maybe doing something a bit more sustainably because they had too much stuff.
Yeah, maybe it's just like kind of when you spend on something, like you know that the value is there, and not just spend because I could just wear and tear.
I hope.
I
really hope.
I think that's something that we kind of have to like educate the people, and so like when you buy something, you know that's like, you know, that's something like of like value that you appreciate. You would keep it for like years. You know, you're gonna bring out the closet again. So like I think it's not so much about just because it's so cheap, I could just buy it. If it's broken, I'll just like throw it away. I'll just buy another one. So I think that kind of habit that the industry has taught the customers to do is quite, you know, bad in a way. It has been happening for like
well, people survived without buying stuff in the volumes for 12 months, I would imagine, because the factories weren't all operating. So to the level they were affected, and people still survived quite okay. So the cycle of buy, spend, throw it away, you know, that has had a bit of a shock. And then I think maybe when people reevaluate their spending habits, I think they may change from what they used to do.
Maybe. I hope they would change and go for more quality stuff rather than, you know, all those wear now, you know, just throw away tomorrow or whatever, you know.
Well, I think the supply chains have been affected to the degree that people like the designers might decide to try to work within their local area more so than just be reliant on a system that may break down if there's a pandemic or a war or something like that. But if then whereas before everyone thought that nothing was going to happen, everything was going to be okay. So, but it's put a shock to that actually the world is fairly vulnerable and things can collapse.
Yeah, anytime.
I mean, how many times, this was about 100 years ago, there was the last pandemic when all the capital cities were shut down around the world and pollution reduced. A lot of things happened that were positive because human activity stopped.
Yeah.
So that's certainly that's going to be with us in some way.
I hope so. I hope so. You know, I hope so that we will all be mindful that this could happen again in the future. It's not just pandemic. I mean, of diseases. It could be war. It could be whatever. You know,
it could be like political too.
Yeah. You never know. So we have to learn. Yeah, I think you have to learn to be more self-sufficient. You know? Self-sufficient. We have to be more self-reliant.
Yeah.
So and in that process, you know, hopefully, you know, we could help build up the economy of our country again, back up, you know.
Yeah. And careful with the resources. So
careful with the resources.
So the resources that are within each country, rather than going for a cheap, you know, the cheapest thing wins. So
I guess so.
I think that you might find that Malaysian, or not just Malaysian, but other countries within their own country might develop more, bring back more of their own processing.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's just, well, it just goes back to like overconsumption and just like being not reliant on just like one source.
Yes.
To get what you need to like to do, like to proceed with the next step, I guess. So like there's like so much factor when you spoke of like fragile. So I guess like even not just like about the pandemic, it could be like political.
Yeah.
When a country between a country there's like an issue, it affects the imports, it affects the exports.
Exactly.
The currency may change. So like you just cannot rely on just like a single source to like do everything for you. That's what I learned from like the pandemic. So that being said, I think as a designer, I think we also have to like adapt to what's happening around us.
Yeah.
So
what is available around us?
So I think for me, the pandemic was kind of like a blessing in disguise, I guess, because like the whole industry was going so fast.
Yeah.
We have like spring, summer, like pre-fall, fall, winter. There's like a tour, wedding, resort. So like it's just like a year to like 16 collections to like kind of like keep up with.
Crazy,
I think when that pandemic hit, everyone kind of like stepped on like the brakes and like took a back seat. I kind of was like enjoying like kind of like that tone, like the kind of like paced, like not thinking about the next 3 collection where I'm still producing the current collection. So I think it was just like that overconsumption, overproduction. There's like this over demand from the industry that I was like at kind of like my breaking point. But then when the lockdown happens, it gave me kind of like a break and like a kind of like a slower pace and just like really think what's the next step leading up to like I guess this KL Fashion Week. So I think that was like a good almost like
wake up call.
It was like a wake up call. I was like, it's time for me to take a break for a while and then just like re-strategize and like rethink stuff. So I think that really helped and kind of like I would say not just like, oh, it's just like another day like producing another collection. It was like what's next and really just like plan and what's gonna happen. I'm so glad to be listening hearing this from you, you know, because I think we should not be defeated, you know. We should be optimistic, you know. However is the situation, you know, pandemic, lockdown, whatever, but we should be optimistic, but cautiously optimistic, you know, so that we could move forward instead of just they say in Malaysia, gulung tikar, you know, close shop. No. We should still go on, you know. We can go on, you know, but I guess adapt
to the challenges, you know.
I think that there's also like I watched this kind of like an interview from, I believe it was like YouTube or like there was an article about consumption just like in fashion specifically. The question was it really made me think. It was because she was asking we shouldn't be asking why the garments that we're buying are so expensive, we should be asking why is it so cheap?
Yeah.
Because I think there's just like a lot of like labor issues within the industry. I think
ethics and whatsoever.
Yeah. So I think that was like a good question to raise. So I think that really just made everyone like rethink their choices when they are purchasing.
Yeah.
So I guess like just like the mass market is kind of, I guess they're like the one that got hit like the worst with the lockdown.
Do you think we still want to go mass?
Previously, I would kind of imagine my business would kind of be on that scale where they're just like selling, you know, producing that much. But I think not anymore, because I think I have to. There's like an anxiety with me when production, because the quality.
Yes.
It's just something I had like experiences where like during production there were like a lot of issues.
Yes.
It was a little bit traumatic, I would say, because it's just like, and my brand is just so small. It's just like 10, 12 pieces, and when it's just like one or two with like issues, I'll be like, what am I gonna do? So like, you know, if just imagine like thousands of pieces like getting produced when there's like hundreds or 200s where I have like issues, they would throw that away.
Exactly.
Reproduce again. So like, there's just like costs on top of costs, and then like the image is not that great anymore. So like, I think I just have to like control a bit how I'm producing.
I agree totally with you.
Yeah. So I think that kind of like the whole business strategy has to change too because of like production.
It is important that we have to go on. We have to continue doing what we do, but like you said, like at a slower pace, at a smaller scale. You know.
But is sustainability in fashion design and product stewardship, I think, will become more prominent in a sales strategy.
I hope so too. Yeah.
Which is like in KL Fashion Week, they're doing the sustainable section. So which we've contributed the raw materials for the designers to do that. So, and that's a little bit different. That's something that would have happened 10 or 15 years ago. And that thought process of considering that is starting to become more common. So whereas before it was more about how good the person looks with virgin materials rather than maybe repurposing something. So I think that, you know, thought life of how a design works will probably change a little bit because of the pandemic. So which is not a bad thing. And it may help with the overconsumption that, you know, so the people's buying decisions are a bit more than just the thing they see on the rack. That there's a bit more behind it.
I hope so. All my life, that's what I want to see happening. You know, but this phenomena of online businesses, you know, I think 10, 15 years ago, they started on selling on social media, you know, like really cheap pieces. I was really against that, you know. I really would go for like what Kit says, you know, like go for quality, you know. Maybe the price is slightly high, but don't question why it's cheap. Don't question why it's expensive. Question why it's so cheap. Because surely there must be some abuse, shortcuts or whatever, you know, some unethical practices, you know, along the way, which is involved in producing that piece of very cheap shirt,
Well, it has a cost to the environment. You know, is a big part of it.
It's just I talked about this sustainability on the previous episode. It's just that how do we encourage designers to go into designing or redesign or repurpose recycle pieces? How do you upcycle it? You know?
I think it's a combination of where people are now, the younger people coming through. So they are more aware of their environment than people that are in their 50s and 60s, because in the 50s and 60s they were more about consuming, building, you know. And actually the younger people are not. They have a different view.
Yeah, I hope.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. My children, which are in their 20s, they have a different view about food, for example.
Yeah.
And you know, to find a vegetarian when I was younger was pretty unusual. Everyone ate meat, you know, but now that's not unusual. It's fairly common. And then vegan food based, which is all plant based, is pretty common. Whereas that
it's
was
very in now.
Yeah, it was unheard of.
Yeah, even it's like down to as simple as recycling.
Yeah.
I was talking to my mom about this the other day. She was like, why can't we just like throw the plastic container with like that food still in it? I was like, that's not how you recycle stuff. You have to clean. Get all the grease off the container and then properly recycle it. There's just like, I guess it's just like extra work to like just like throw things away. So like it was just like, you gotta like educate people, and then you have to kind of like remind yourself to do that as well. I think in this, or like the next generation, I think the people are starting to think about the consequences, which after like the consumption. So I think it's a...
Well, they're seeing it, aren't they? The polar ice cap, you know, glaciers are shrinking and different things are physically visible. And fires and stuff like that. So they're more aware of it. So then in their clothing, I think they'll expect to see some consideration of that in how that's being produced. And that will probably stop the mass consumption. Won't stop it completely because it's part of what people do, but I think that it will have an impact on those decisions. So especially for designers that do things that are more personal, I think that'll have more of an impact. Exactly how that's going to happen, I don't know, but I think that there will be some sort of evolving sense of the environmental aspects to how this whole thing works. So, and that's happening with what we do with the councils we work with. They're very conscious of getting the information to tabulate how much they've collected, what's been done with it, that it's been dealt with responsibly. Because rather than just the headline information that they've collected this much material, what actually happened to it? Where did it go? So there's a lot more responsibility in the whole chain about what we're doing to try to close the loop, and that's happening. And I think that like with the KL Fashion Week, the sustainability section they're doing, it just highlights that needs to be a consideration. Whether it's real at the minute, maybe not, but I think that over time it will grow and be no different to the food industry. And then out of that, the economy locally, I think it will bring the clothing manufacture and design more into the country of origin.
Yeah, I hope so. It's been nice talking to both of you today, and I want to see this all this production of garments done more locally than being done outside of the country. You know. So that's the lesson that we really learned from the pandemic, from the lockdown. Okay. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Dale.
Thank you
for being with us on Future Fashion today. And you guys out there, stay tuned with us on the next episode of Future Fashion.